The kitchen smelled like someone else had cooked in it. I don't know how to explain that. But I walked in, and the garlic wasn't mine. The pan was on the wrong burner. And the wine glass in the sink had lipstick on it, a shade Marlene hadn't worn in 2 years. I stood there, just watching the red curl on the rim like it was about to confess. Upstairs, the shower was running. For too long. I didn't call out her name. I just stood in that kitchen, staring at the glass like it was a message left in a language I wasn't supposed to understand. The worst part? I already did. Marlene and I didn't fight. We didn't scream. There were no slammed doors or accusations. Just silence. And silence, I've come to learn, is a language all its own. She came downstairs wrapped in a robe that wasn't hers. "Why are you up?" she asked. "I could ask you the same thing," I said. She blinked. "I told you I was going for a run. Showers don't run for 40 minutes. She smiled. "You're being weird." Then she walked past me, grabbed the wine glass, the one I hadn't touched, and dropped it into the dishwasher like it never existed. I didn't follow her. I didn't ask what was really going on. I just walked into the living room and stared at the digital clock under the TV. 4:12 a.m. It was blinking. Power had been out. And yet, the entire neighborhood still glowed. No flickers. No storms. No outage. Someone had unplugged it. Recently, that night, I lay in bed while she slept beside me, still damp from her second shower, breathing steadily like none of this mattered. And I realized I was waiting for a moment that wouldn't come. No screaming. No confession. Just a slow-motion departure. Not hers. Mine. Not today. But soon. The goodbye wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't come with boxes or lawyers. Just an empty closet. A key on the counter. And silence in return for silence. I was already halfway gone. And she hadn't noticed. On Thursday, she asked if I wanted anything from the farmer's market. That's what she called it. The farmer's market. As if I didn't know the one near us had shut down last spring when the lease got pulled for some overpriced apartment complex. I just said, "Grab whatever," and turned the page of my book. She smiled like it was all perfectly normal and left the house in boots too clean for any place that sells vegetables. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. I didn't install trackers or tap her phone. I let her lie. Not because I believed her, but because I wanted to see how far she'd go with it. Like watching a magician repeat a trick, waiting for the sleight of hand to fail. She returned 2 hours later with a brown paper bag of tomatoes. Cherry. I hate cherry tomatoes. She knows that. But she washed them, poured them into a blue bowl, and slid them onto the table like she was doing me a favor. I counted them. 13. I know. Who counts tomatoes? Someone who's watching closely. Someone who's realized his wife talks less and less and brings home more and more silence. Someone who's starting to document his life not in memories, but in evidence. That night, I stayed up and went into the garage. Not to escape. To look. I found her trunk still warm. A receipt was wedged beside the spare tire. Not for produce, but for 2 drinks and a dessert sampler at a boutique cafe 30 miles away. I looked up the place. It had red velvet booths and a reputation for being discreet. Couples went there when they didn't want to be found. She didn't mention dessert when she got home. I didn't confront her. Again, not because I was afraid. It was something else. Something colder. I was documenting her erosion. The slow fading of a person I once knew, piece by piece. Like watching wallpaper peel in a house no one lives in anymore. The next morning, she kissed me on the cheek before leaving for a meeting. I heard the garage door open, then close, then silence. I walked to the window and watched her car drive past the end of the street and stop. 3 houses down. Someone got in. Tall, gray coat. Couldn't see the face. But the way he walked, casual, like he'd done this before, told me everything. The car didn't speed off. It just turned the corner slowly, like it had nowhere urgent to be. Later that day, I got a text from her. "Pick up some paper towels if you go out." No, please. No, thanks. Just a command. I stared at the screen for a long time. I thought about replying something sharp, something loaded. "Tell your guest to wipe his shoes before getting into our car next time." But I didn't send anything. I bought the paper towels. I brought them home. I placed them on the counter next to the cherry tomatoes still in the blue bowl, untouched. And then I did something I hadn't done in months. I opened the drawer in the hallway, took out the envelope I'd sealed back in April. My name was on the front. Inside, a single sheet of paper. My resignation letter. From this life. From this house. From this version of me. I wrote it the night she forgot our anniversary. We had guests over. She made cocktails. Laughed too loud. I waited for her to remember. She never did. That was when I decided the goodbye wouldn't come with fireworks. Just footsteps on hardwood floors and an echo where my name used to live. I put the envelope back. Not yet. But soon. When the silence becomes permanent, you don't need a goodbye. You just leave the volume off. There's a photo on our fridge, Marlene laughing in a park, sunglasses halfway down her nose, holding a coffee cup I bought her that day. We weren't posing. I caught her off guard, and she looked so alive it almost hurt to see it now. The problem is, I don't remember when I took that picture. I mean, I know where, and I know we were there together. But I can't place the actual moment I raised the phone, tapped the screen, and froze her in time. Which is strange, because back then I remembered everything. I used to replay memories like favorite scenes in a movie. Now, I only remember what she forgets to delete. Her laptop was open Thursday night. She never leaves it open. She's the type to shut everything down to avoid background power drain. But that night she got sloppy. I didn't snoop. I just walked past it. The messages were right there, not labeled with hearts or initials or anything romantic. Just MS. It could have meant anything, except it didn't. Because MS had written, Sunday was perfect. Can't stop thinking about you in that robe. The robe. The one I'd never seen before that night when she came downstairs pretending she'd been running. I could have taken a photo. Could have sent it to myself. But I didn't. I didn't want a folder of pain on my phone. I wanted the truth to rot where it was born. Quietly. Invisibly. I closed the laptop. Carefully. Deliberately. I made sure not to shift the screen angle or leave a single fingerprint. Then I went outside and sat in the car. Not to drive. Not even to escape. I just needed silence that wasn't hers. There's something cruel about watching someone carry on like everything is fine when your entire life is caving in beneath them. It makes you feel like a ghost, like you already left and no one noticed, like you're haunting your own marriage. The next morning, she came into the kitchen humming. She hadn't hummed in months. She opened the fridge, took out oat milk. I drink regular, and asked if I wanted pancakes. I said sure. She made them. 2 plates. Extra syrup. She even poured a little smiley face with the batter on mine. It would have been sweet, except the last time she made pancakes was the day I proposed. You seem happy, I said. She blinked. Why wouldn't I be? And that was the moment I realized something terrifying. She wasn't happy because of me. She was happy because she thought I had no idea. That's the danger of being quiet. People assume you're clueless. But what they forget is that quiet people are often the ones watching the most. I took one bite. Chewed. Swallowed. Then I said, you ever think about selling the house? She paused mid-cut. What? I was just thinking it might be too much for us now. She set her fork down. Where's this coming from? Nowhere, I said. Just a thought. But it wasn't just a thought. It was a warning. A tremor before the quake. I knew she wouldn't connect the dots yet. Not until it was too late. That night, I went into the attic for the first time in years. I found the box with our wedding invitations. Dusted off the envelope with our names in cursive. I ran my thumb across the gold lettering. Then I put it in a bag. The bag is still under my bed. It's filling slowly. An invitation. A photo. A ring box. A journal entry I wrote the day after we lost our first pregnancy, and she cried in the bathtub for an hour while I sat outside the door, useless. Marlene doesn't know about the bag. She doesn't know I've already started packing the parts of my life I actually want to keep. Not things, moments. Proof I existed. That I mattered before I became invisible. Soon, the rest of it will be just background noise. Just a house full of blinking clocks, cold coffee, and fake smiles. But not yet. There's one more thing I need to see. The look on her face when she realizes I was never clueless. Just quiet. 3 nights ago, she whispered someone else's name in her sleep. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But I heard it clear enough to know it didn't belong to me. The syllables came out soft, almost affectionate. Not lustful, not panicked. Just warm, familiar, safe. Like her dreams knew a version of comfort that I hadn't been part of in years. The name was Clay. I don't know a Clay. She doesn't either, at least not that I've ever heard her mention. But when she exhaled that name into the dark and curled her fingers around a pillow like it was someone's hand, I just laid there, staring at the ceiling. For the next 2 hours, I didn't blink. By morning, she was humming again. She made coffee. Set mine down just the way I like it, with a splash of half and half and a silver spoon that clinked gently against the ceramic. She smiled like she hadn't just gifted me a name that would haunt me for weeks. I Googled every Clay within 30 miles. Every LinkedIn profile, every company website she'd ever visited. I found nothing. Or maybe I was looking in the wrong place. Maybe Clay isn't his name. Maybe it's just the name she gave him in her fantasy world where I don't exist. I didn't confront her. Not directly. I just watched her as she tied her shoes that afternoon, lacing them with the kind of practiced confidence people use when they're getting dressed for someone they're still trying to impress. "You heading to the gym?" I asked. She looked up. "Yeah, I'm trying that new studio near downtown. Isn't that in the opposite direction of your old one?" She hesitated, just for a second, then nodded like it was no big deal. "Yeah, it's trendy. They do candlelit cycling classes now." Candlelit cycling. What a ridiculous concept. I almost laughed. "Instead," I said, "you should take a photo. I'd love to see what that looks like." She gave me a forced smile. "Sure." But no photo ever came. That evening, while she was gone, I stood at her side of the bed. I've never done that before. I usually stay in my lane, literally. My pillow, my book, my drawer. But that night, I stepped into her world. Her drawer was unlocked. Inside, a phone charger she never uses. A small bottle of perfume I haven't smelled on her in years. A folded note, crumpled once, then smoothed out. It wasn't addressed to her. It didn't have her name. It simply said, "You feel like peace, but you're playing with fire." I stared at it for a long time. That sentence was so strange, so loaded. I couldn't tell if it was something she wrote or something she received. But one thing was clear, it didn't belong to our marriage. It belonged to something else. Someone else. I placed it back exactly where I found it. I didn't want to tip my hand. Because the truth is, this isn't about catching her anymore. I already have. It's about understanding how she could lie so cleanly, so comfortably, and what kind of person I had become while standing quietly beside that lie for so long. The next morning, I asked if she slept well. She smiled again. "I always sleep better after cycling." I nodded. "Did you see Clay there?" The look on her face was microscopic. A flicker of fear, so fast you'd miss it if you blinked. She recovered instantly. "Who?" I took a sip of coffee and smiled. "No one," I said. "Must have been a dream." She nodded and changed the subject. But her hands were fidgeting. She poured more coffee than she usually drinks. She didn't finish it. That's when I knew. She was starting to wonder how much I knew, and how long I'd known it. She didn't realize the answer yet. All of it. Long enough. Too long. And when the moment comes, when I finally leave without a sound, she'll remember this morning. The way her fingers trembled around a cup she thought I hadn't noticed. She'll remember the name. And she'll wonder how many other things I noticed before she stopped being mine. The more she covered her tracks, the more obvious they became. That Friday, her phone rang while she was folding laundry. She didn't hear it. I was in the hallway, just close enough to see the screen light up. No caller ID. Then again, 3 minutes later. Same display. And again. By the time she came back into the room, she acted like she hadn't missed a thing. I said nothing. She held up a t-shirt I hadn't seen in years. "This still fits you?" "It used to," I said, not taking my eyes off the phone. Her thumb hovered over the lock screen. I saw her hesitate. A tiny pause, barely a second, like she had to remember the password. That's when I knew. She'd changed it. She glanced at me. "Forgot I left it here." I nodded. "You're always misplacing things." She smiled. But this time, it didn't touch her eyes. That night, I took a walk around the block after dinner. I needed to think. Needed to feel what it was like to be outside that house without leaving it entirely. The air was crisp. The neighborhood felt unfamiliar, like I'd stepped into a version of my life I didn't belong in anymore. When I came back, her laptop was gone from the kitchen. She never moves it. It's always there, charging next to the recipe books. But not that night. That night, everything she didn't want me to see had vanished. So I waited. I watched. I listened. The next day, she made plans to go hiking with friends. She wore waterproof mascara. She packed breath mints. She wore her necklace, the one she only ever wore on dates. Not our dates. Other dates. Her real ones. She left before noon. I gave it 20 minutes. Then I opened the hall closet, top shelf, inside a shoebox labeled winter scarves. Her laptop was there. She had disconnected it from Wi-Fi. Clever, but not clever enough. What she didn't know was that she hadn't disabled Bluetooth. And her text history was still locally cached. I didn't need a password. I didn't even need to look far. There were 27 messages between her and a number saved as S. But it wasn't just a number. It was Clay. I knew it now. His full name came up in a payment split confirmation for a wine tasting retreat. Clayton Seeger. A name I now knew better than my own. One message stood out. He's quiet lately. I think he suspects. And the reply. Then let him. It's not like he'll do anything. I read that line 5 times. It wasn't anger that hit me. It was embarrassment. Shame that I had let her think I was incapable of response. That my silence was weakness. That I would let her treat me like background noise in my own life. I closed the laptop and placed it back exactly as I found it. I didn't rush. I didn't scream. I did what I always do. I made a list. This time, not of things I'd take, but of things she'd forget. She would forget the time I sat on the bathroom floor when she had food poisoning, holding her hair back even though I had worked the next day. She would forget how I built her father's memorial bench with my own hands, just because she said she missed sitting beside him. She would forget how I never corrected her in public, even when she was dead wrong, because I knew her pride meant more than my accuracy. She would forget everything, because people like her only remember what they take, not what they leave behind. And that's why I won't yell when I go. I won't leave a dramatic note. I won't slam the door. When it happens, it'll be simple. She'll wake up one morning and the closet will be half empty. The kitchen drawer will be missing a few spoons. The wedding photo will be gone, not because I wanted it, but because I didn't want her to have it. And maybe, just maybe, she'll open that laptop again and read her own words back. It's not like he'll do anything. Then she'll realize I already did. I left, just not the way she expected. It started with little disappearances. Her favorite wine opener, gone. The throw blanket she always wrapped herself in for movie nights, missing. The record player we found together at a thrift store in Vermont, vanished from the shelf. She didn't say a word. Maybe she thought she misplaced them. Maybe she thought I did something absent-minded, like I sometimes do when I'm preoccupied. But the truth is, I was testing her. Not to hurt her. Not to sabotage anything. I just wanted to know if she still noticed me, or anything I touched. The answer was no. She walked right past those empty spaces like they didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. But I noticed something else. She had started dressing differently at home. More carefully. She used to wear mismatched socks and college hoodies with soup stains. Now she wore thin camisoles, gold bangles, subtle perfume on a Tuesday afternoon. She styled her hair even if she wasn't going anywhere. She wanted to be seen, just not by me. That Thursday, I left work early and sat across the street in my car. I watched her pull up in Clay's SUV. She stepped out first, brushing something off her shoulder. He kissed her hand. Not her lips, her hand. Like some twisted romantic. Like she was someone he respected. I almost laughed at the irony. They didn't notice me. They never do. That's the benefit of being the quiet one. People look through you, not at you. They went inside. His house. Not a hotel this time. Home territory. She'd upgraded her betrayal. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened the center console of my car and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying for months. It had everything. Her messages, screenshots, dates, confirmations, and a letter, handwritten, not to her, but to myself. A reminder that I am not disposable, that I do not owe loyalty to someone who traded my silence for her excitement. When she came home, she kissed me on the cheek. The same cheek she used to press against my shoulder at 2 a.m. when she couldn't sleep. I didn't flinch. I just smiled and asked if she wanted anything from the grocery store tomorrow. She said, "Surprise me." And that's when I knew exactly what I'd do next. The real surprise wasn't in a grocery bag. It was in a moment she couldn't predict. The moment her safety net disappears. The next morning, I left the house with an empty grocery bag and no intention of filling it. She texted me mid-drive. "Don't forget oat milk." No greeting. No punctuation. No please. I sat in the parking lot of the store for 15 minutes, engine off, bag in the passenger seat. I wasn't thinking about groceries. I was thinking about the duplicate apartment key in my glove box. One she didn't know existed. A place she hadn't seen. A space I'd been quietly furnishing for 2 months. It wasn't elaborate. Just a clean one-bedroom. Hardwood floors. Neutral tones. Silence. That's what I was buying this week, not groceries. Silence. When I got back home, I handed her the bag. Inside, a single receipt and a bottle of still water. She looked confused. "Where's the rest?" I shrugged. "They were out." "You didn't check another store?" I stared at her for a moment, then smiled. "No. I figured you'd figure something out." She didn't like that answer. I can see it in the way her mouth tightened slightly, then released. She turned and walked off without another word. That night, I sat on the balcony while she FaceTimed someone from the bedroom. She said it was Lena, but I heard a man's voice in the background, faint and amused. I didn't even lean in to listen. I didn't care any more about the details. The name, the hotel, the fake gym stories, they were all just noise now. The real story was this. I was done playing dead. And for the first time, it wasn't sad. It was quietly liberating. She came home to silence. No note. No suitcase. No argument waiting in the kitchen. Just a house missing a few familiar things. My shoes by the door, my toothbrush, my jacket on the hook. The wedding photo was gone. My drawer was empty. She stood in the living room for nearly 10 minutes, not moving, just slowly turning in place, like someone trying to hear a sound that's no longer there. She called my phone. Straight to voicemail. Then again. And again. I didn't answer. I wasn't angry. I was simply already somewhere else. The apartment was warm, quiet, smelled faintly of cedar and clean linens. I made coffee, sat by the window, and opened my notebook. I hadn't written anything in months. Not since before all of this began. But now I had the urge not to document her betrayal, but to write about what came next. Not revenge. Not grief. Just me. I'd spent years waiting for the version of her that no longer existed. Now I was finally walking toward the version of myself I'd forgotten about. A week later, she emailed me. One line. Can we talk? I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Some endings don't need fireworks. Some victories don't need applause. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave without needing to be heard. Because now, for the first time in years, I don't live in a house of whispers and performance. I live in peace. And peace doesn't need permission.